What's up, my peeps? My name is Cynthia, aka C-Flow, and welcome to my channel, C-Flow's Reality TV Talk. On this channel, we review and recap some of our favorite reality shows. So please like and subscribe and share and comment down below. I like to hear what you think about the latest episodes that I review. So today we're going to review the latest episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. That's episode 14. Old Atlanta, New Tricks, which is an interesting title to me. So we start off at the iNest event, which is the wine event or launch event that Martell is having in Atlanta for the wine that he named after his grandmother. Now, it starts off with Martell getting dressed. And my question is, what in the white fox, white chinchilla was this dude wearing? Like that, I'm sorry, was country as all get out. Like that whole white chinchilla fox, whatever the hell that was just a bit country and a bit much for me. But hey, maybe he likes it. I love it, you know? And then they show the attendees. It looks like it was a really good turnout. You see Marceau and Maurice and Lewis and his friend Chris, his business partner Chris, mingling with, looks like majority of them were all ladies. And Marceau was, I think, quote unquote, flirting. And then he says something stupid like, where's my ring? I need to find my ring. And someone says, yeah, there's a female that says, yeah, before you get in trouble. I don't know about that, Marceau. He's a piece of work, in my opinion. That's what I have to say about that. And then there was also, I think he said a few family members, Martell said, that was attending his event. One in particular was his Uncle Sam, which is his mother's brother. And Inez is his mom, of course. So Martell starts to give his speech. And I guess because of his nerves, he decided to call all of his bros up. Didn't call his uncle up, which was not the best thing to do. And then he gets tongue-tied, loses his train of thought, and they pop to Marceau in his confessional, and Marceau's like, basically Marceau says what a lot of us already knew, which is either he's drunk or he's never seen him like this, or he's nervous, or he doesn't know how to do this without his partner, Mel. And production flashes back to how Mel was always the person that was the speaker for them. And she was always the one that gave speeches. So clearly she was the brains and the face and the voice of the businesses that they had together. But then he starts his speech. He gets his train of thought together, and he mentions that the wine was named after his grandmother. He didn't go into detail about his grandmother, which I knew that was a red flag. And then he starts talking about ownership and how his bros have businesses and how we are always buying other people's ish and eating other people's ish and wearing other people's ish, and that we need to start having our own ish. It was just a whole thing about basically ownership, which, we'll chalk it up to nerves. But you can tell that his Uncle Sam was not happy at all, that he didn't really go into detail about his mother, or Martell's grandmother, Uncle Sam's mother. So we go out outside, and Martell is there, and Uncle Sam comes out, and Uncle Sam's like, basically telling him he was not happy. And Martell starts to whisper in his ear, do not do this on national television. You will regret it. And, Uncle Sam's like, I don't regret nothing. And so Martell was still trying to tell him not to say anything on national television. Uncle Sam says he's getting ready to leave. Martell follows him, tries to talk to him. Then they go into another room. Then Martell's telling production not to follow them in the room. And they kind of going back and forth, a lot of cussing going on. I felt like the way that Martell was talking to his Uncle Sam was not respectful at all. And then they flash back to Marceau, Maurice, and Lewis and Chris. And Chris says, did you guys notice that Martell's Uncle Sam wasn't happy and he said he was leaving? Maurice and Lewis basically tries to give an excuse about Martell and why he didn't get into details about his grandmother. And Lewis says something to the effect of, as long as his grandmother's name is on there, like that should be enough. No, it should not. He should be going into details as to what type of woman she was and what inspired him to name this wine after her. So I thought that was a bunch of BS. They flash back to Martell and his uncle outside this time because Uncle Sam's like, I'm out, dude, peace. Like, he's leaving. And then they get into it. And then Martell tells production not to come down here. So Martell's getting smart when it comes to production, getting an earful. So that pretty much ended that scene. That was pretty much it. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah. They fast forward to the day after of the event, and the guys are getting ready to leave to go back to Huntsville. Martell mentions that Lewis had to leave early because of a family emergency, which we later find out was due to a death in the family. Then the guys get ready to go onto the Sprinter, and you could just hear them talking about how they had a good time. And then they leave the mansion. We switch over to the Whitlows. They're just boring to me. They really are. But so as I mentioned before, we find out that Lewis left early because there was a death in the family. They didn't really mention who. It doesn't matter. It's just our condolences to their family. And then they're supposed to be driving to Birmingham the next day to pay their respects. They proceed to talk about the Atlanta trip, and Tiffany's pretty much interrogating Lewis. Lewis is telling half of the details. Like, for instance, he talked about how Martell wanted to get some ideas from the guys for like commercials or whatever. And he pretends like he doesn't remember what he said, but production, good old trusted production, came back and showed how he was saying if you pop that bottle, something to the effect of, you come home, you pop the bottle of the NS and you spread your legs. So of course he ain't gonna tell Tiffany that he said something like that, but she gonna see this anyway. So I don't know how it's gonna pop off in the reunion. Probably won't, because they're boring. My opinion, of course. So then he mentions the rage room, and she's like, what do you have to rage about? And he talks about he's raging about his sexual frustration. And then she's like, tell you, they're just boring to me. She talks about, well, if my husband was really that frustrated, we could talk about it and rectify this by making some changes and making time for it. Then she goes into something about, we need to discuss, like, is it a transaction? Which I was like, what the hell is she talking about? Like, she a prostitute? What the heck is she talking about transaction? And should we have it sex in the morning or at night? And then they got to talk about all that, which I think is ridiculous. She even goes into how, if your husband wants sex more than you do, that means you have to do your wifely duties. And then Lewis asks, is it a duty or is it a privilege? Which I was like, really, dude? Like, what does that mean? And then they ended the boring Whitlow's discussion. I'm sorry, they're just so boring to me. All right, we move to Kimmy and Maurice. Kimmy talks about, and this is how I feel too. Excuse the nails. It's SNS, but they popping off. It ain't even been 2 weeks, but that's my problem. She talked about how a clean house and a quiet house was like a breath of fresh air for her, and how it was therapeutic and a recharge for her. And I get it. Like, she said, nobody was at the house. Even the dog was at the dog trainer. Like, nobody was at the house. Maurice tell Kimmy that he had a good time at the trip. And then they switched to Tisha asking Maurice how the trip was. And I think it's interesting how they show the different dynamics between the two couples, because Kimmy and Maurice doesn't seem to be like there's tension there. Kimmy doesn't seem to be insecure about their relationship, whereas Tisha is always asking questions and why and blah, 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 and just there's always tension there. But it's Maurice's fault because he's always doing stuff to egg her on or make her feel on edge, which she wants to put up with that ish. That's on her. So yeah, so Tisha brings up the trip to Marceau. He said he had fun. He mentioned Melanika, whoever Martell's event planner is. I think it's Melnika. Sorry, don't mean to be disrespectful. It's just that sometimes some people say Melanika and some say Melnika. But anyway, they talked about she planned the event, how she had some girls there, and then of course Tisha's like, why does she invite the girls? And then they pop back to Maurice and Kimmy, and he mentions that Martell tells him that he knew Melnika longer than Mel, and he refers to them as Mel 1.0 and Mel 2.0. And Kimmy is like, why would you even say that? Like, she's just like, whatever. Which I'm like, yeah, why would you do that? Or why would you even say that? Then they go back to Marceau and Tisha. He mentions how they went to a strip club. Tisha goes into why y'all always got to go to the strip club. Marceau says, when Atlanta, you go to the strip club, and that's the truth. I mean, it's facts. I live in the metro Atlanta area, and that's what dudes do, and women too. I've been to the strip club. I don't frequent it, but Atlanta's well known for their strip clubs. And if she was secure in her marriage, she wouldn't worry about some strippers shaking their butt in his face. But that's neither here nor there. And then he goats and taunts Tisha by saying, well, you know how I do. And she's like, well, how do you do? He's causing unnecessary friction, if you ask me, but he tends to get off on that. Back to Kimmy and Maurice. Kimmy asked Maurice straight up, did you touch some of these girls? And then Maurice was like, well, it depends on what does touch mean. He's trying to get clarification on touch. He's like, a tap isn't a touch, but he basically admitted that there was some physical touch, but it wasn't a caress or anything like that. He was helping the fun or something like that. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, and then but then Kimmy was like, whatever happens is gonna pop up in social media anyway, so whatever. Which I love. Maurice brings up the rage room and how Kimmy's asking, oh, is that one of those places where you smash things up, get your frustration out? And he says yeah, and then he mentions Lewis having sexual frustration. Kimmy mentions that she met with Tiffany, and Tiffany kind of said that Lewis was wanting more sex or whatever, more alone time. Let's see what else. Yeah, Maurice basically says married couples have less sex across the board, which I was married. That can happen. It's true. To some extent. It just depends if you want to keep it spicy. Let's see, I said Maurice. Back to Marceau, Lord Jesus, and Tisha. He says he couldn't be in a sexless marriage. He continues to say crazy stuff. Like, I can't keep up with all the craziness that he mentions. But the kicker was he basically said to Tisha, let's say, if you wanted more sex than I do, I should not stop you or shouldn't have a problem with you outsourcing it, which was stupid. They go back to Kimmy and Maurice, and Kimmy says married people don't date anymore. And then so Maurice is like, oh, is that what it is? Is that what women want? And Maurice states that girlfriends have more sex. And Kimmy was like, it's because girlfriends are being wooed. Men and women are different. Married women and women in general wants to be wooed, which I agree. So if there's any guys out there, if you want some more bootay, then you need to be wooing and romancing. Then they go back to Tisha and Marceau. They just give me a headache. They debate, Tisha's debating how women have so many responsibilities, and we do this, we take care of the kids, we do businesses, this and that, and how I guess she was trying to say that men don't have that much responsibility, but of course, as much responsibility as females, and that the responsibilities that women have is exhausting, and sometimes they don't feel like having sex, was her point. She didn't say that verbatim, but I know that was her point. And then he mentioned being silly about how, men are busy hanging out with friends and stuff like that. Let's see. Tisha says that she doesn't know why the Whitlows are having problems because their kids are pretty much grown. They don't have little kids in the house. Marceau basically says that their schedules aren't meshing. Marceau goes on, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. They end with Tisha saying every marriage goes through this at some point, which is pretty much true. Then we switch to Tisha going to see her therapist, Dr. Francis. They discussed her homework assignment, which was Tisha was supposed to get in tune with who Tisha is. She talks about how she wrote her list and kind of delved down into everything on the list, and how she has some things and goals that she wants to reach. Dr. Francis asked, how has her revelation, he didn't say that, it's just my interpretation, affected her relationship? And she said that Marceau asked her, what do you want to do and how can I help you do that or get there? Which Dr. Francis was pleased to hear that, which I don't believe he will do that, help her. Let's see. Then she mentions that Marceau took a trip to Africa by himself and how she feels like that helped him because they had talked about previously, I think it was last season, about how they think that Marceau was depressed and that he went to Africa and it seems like he came back not depressed anymore, I think is what her point was. She did admit that at first she wasn't happy with him going to Africa by himself because she thought they would go as a family, take the kids and all of that. But then she said she understood Marceau does things last minute, making excuses for him. Dr. Francis says he may have dropped it on you last minute, but he was thinking about this long before he even brought it up to you. And he also said that Marceau has some kind of dependency on her, basically always being there or picking up, I don't know, the ball, so to speak. I think that's what he was trying to say, but that Marceau pretty much knows that she's always going to be there regardless, basically. Let's see. And then Dr. Francis tells Tisha that confrontation is the key to growth, which of course she says that she doesn't like confrontation, which we know because she doesn't confront Marceau enough for me, in my opinion. And then they say, Dr. Francis says, we'll talk about that some other time. And then Dr. Tisha says he has an interesting or good idea that he would like that he and his wife host couple retreats and would like for Tisha and her husband and their couple friends attend one of their couples events. So I'm pretty sure Tisha's going to bring that up to Marceau as well as the other couples. Let's see. Then we go to Martel and his mom. They're out on the porch. I think it's at Martel's house. I'm assuming so. Where they're getting ready to eat. He's getting the grill ready, which I was like, if you got the foil, aren't you supposed to be poking holes in the foil on the grid of the grate of the barbecue pit? I don't know. I just thought that was kind of strange. Or maybe he does that because he's smoking the meat. I don't know. But anyway, Martel's mom, okay, so they discuss Uncle Sam getting upset in that iNest event. Martel's mom basically says Uncle Sam felt some type of way, basically because he really didn't go into detail about iNest and the woman that she was. And Martel's mom says she probably would have felt some type of way as well, trying to get him to see Uncle Sam's point. Martel says that he hasn't talked to Uncle Sam, that he's called Uncle Sam several times, and Uncle Sam hasn't returned his call. Then they start, Martel talks about how he's going to have an event in Huntsville that's more intimate with family and close friends, and that they'll be going into more detail about and honoring more of Miss Inest, which would be a good thing. I think that'll help smooth things over with Uncle Sam. They start reminiscing about Miss Inest, about how she one time went to Martell's football game in college, but it was really cold, but she really wanted to be there. And how Martell's mom, told her we probably need to go because it's too cold for her. Martell expresses how her passing affected him in a big way, because while he was in school, he didn't even want to try out for NFL scouts while he was in college. And lastly, of course, Martell's mom tells him that he's a good man and he has a good heart. And they pretty much end that. And finally, the good part is when Kimmy and Mel meet up. Mel comes bouncing in. Mel says that she feels blessed and wakes up happy every day, because Kimmy mentions that she looks good and all that stuff. Kimmy also mentions the Atlanta trip. Mel asks Kimmy, when your husband says he's going out of town or on a trip with Martell, doesn't that make you feel a certain way? And Kimmy's like, I trust my husband. Basically that I'm not insecure. Kimmy in her confessional says that it seems like Mel feels like everyone cheats based on her situation and her past experiences, which that is pretty much the way it seems. Let's see. So Kimmy mentioned the wine that Martell is going to be selling, and asked Mel if she knew about it. Mel said, I heard that he was launching a wine, but that's pretty much all she knew. So she didn't know any details about it. And so Kimmy proceeds to talk about the Inest event and how one of Martell's uncles was there. And Mel asked which uncle, and Kimmy's like, I don't know which uncle, but I do know that he was upset and left early. And then Mel was basically like, oh, that was probably Uncle Sam. But she said he pretty much has like an even temper, so she's curious as to why or what upset him. And Kimmy's like, I have no idea. Mel then asks who was the event planner, and Kimmy tells her it was Melnica. So Mel says the good part. She knows Melnica, and that Melnica was her wedding planner. She also tells Kimmy that Melnica quit 1 to 2 weeks before the wedding. And Kimmy's like, why did she do that? So Mel says she was on a 3-way call with Melnica and Martell, and how they got into it, and how Melnica put him on blast and was like, you be out here cheating and you were trying to find out information and get with my assistant or something like that at my office. And Martell was like, Melnica, why you on here telling lies and stuff like that, or making this up? And Mel was saying she was 22 at the time, and at that time she believed that Melnica was making it up and believed Martell, but her 36-year-old self today would not have believed it. So that's pretty much how it ended. It was a pretty good episode. It wasn't too eventful, but it was a pretty good episode. I'm still stuck on the white fox chinchilla that Martell was rocking. But anyway, that's it. So again, hope you like this commentary. Hope you like my recap. Let me know if you agree with some of my opinions in the comment. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel. And until next time, peace. Hopefully next time I'll have my nails done. Again, peace.